Awesome, awesome, awesome. Welcome to day 2 of the Spicy Marriage Challenge. We are so excited that you're here. We're also live inside of the Facebook group. So if you are seeing this on Facebook and you have not registered, make sure you go to spicymarriagechallenge.com so that you can be inside of our Zoom space, get your questions answered live, get your comments shouted out live, as well as get the recordings for each day of the challenge, so you don't want to miss that. This is sponsored by The Up Company, a 5-star relationship coaching and therapy practice. You can find more about The Up Company at www.upcompany.org. So today is day 2. So if you weren't with us on day 1, we pretty much did an introduction for the Spicy Marriage Challenge. We had a real reality check about the importance of really revving up the spice in your marriage, especially with intimacy. We looked at the stats. The stats are not too cute. They're not cute at all. Not even on a weekly basis. Almost half of married couples aren't having sex on at least a weekly basis. We were looking at the stats saying, as a matter of fact, about 20% only have sex one time a month. That's 12 times a year, y'all. That's a reality that we need to really bring to the surface so we can do something about it. And then another almost 20% haven't had sex in 6 months. We consider that sexless marriages, and I think that is motivation enough to really get plugged in, because if we're not intentional, it could be any of us, right? So thank you for being intentional tonight. We're going to be here for about between 15 to 20 minutes of just sharing some really important pieces to help rev up the spice in your marriage. On day 1, we also talked about why sex was important. We looked at the lower divorce rates. There's a link of lower divorce rates for couples who are consistently keeping their sex life alive. There's just good stats in terms of low stress, good sleep, healthy immune system. It's like the supplement pill that you didn't know you needed. But not only all of that in terms of health, but also just helping the chemistry and the bond. There's literally chemicals that are released in the brain during sexual intimacy. So we covered all of that on day 1. We also looked at some of the challenges and what to do about that. So today we're going to look at, well, what are those distractions that get in the way of keeping your sex life alive as a married couple? And also, how can we spice up flirting? Maybe it's gotten a little stale, right? When you've been married for a while, we get comfortable, don't we? So we're going to talk about those pieces. And before I do, I'm going to introduce who I am. So I'm Natasha Oates, an award-winning therapist and relationship coach. Come this March, it'll be 10 beautiful years that I've been helping couples with communication, with trust issues, and intimacy. I myself am happily married 16 years, and I'm so excited to just pour this knowledge and information to you. But I want to hear from you. So please, please, please put in the chat box, put in the comment section, what do you think are the most common challenges that get in the way of intimacy, that get in the way of a great sex life for couples who've been married for a while? I want to hear from you. I'm going to share just some general common issues that come up and what you can do about it. Because yes, we're going to talk about ways to spice up your marriage. But if those distractions get in the way and block, it's going to be for naught, right? So I want to hear from you. I'm going to take a look in the chat box. Let me see. I want to hear from you. Make sure you share What do you think are some common hindrances, some common distractions? What gets in the way? Yes, work. Somebody said work or kids. Absolutely, absolutely, absolutely. Work or kids. Keep those coming. Again, if you're viewing this from social media, you have not registered for the challenge, make sure you do so you can get copies of each day of the challenge. You don't want to miss any of these days. You can do so by visiting spicymarriagechallenge.com. So there's one culprit that usually covers many issues, and that is fatigue, being tired. Being tired. How many times do you hear people around you saying how exhausted they are? Just exhausted. You know that fatigue, being tired, is a main culprit or a distraction for your relationship, for your sexual life. If you start to view intimacy and sex as a chore, as a task, as that thing you got to do after you do the dishes, we need to be honest. We need to be honest when fatigue is becoming a challenge. When you know, it's a toss up between getting good sleep or having good sex. Like either one is fine. You know that fatigue is a challenge. And to the point of the person in the chat box who said working kids, oftentimes it's because of our careers, right? So many of us have, we have one job maybe, right? But oftentimes in that one job, we're doing the job of 2 and 3 and 4 people. That is so common, so very common. And when you're in an environment like that, you usually have projects that's not, they are kind of overflow, they're spilling over into after work hours. It's on your mind. You have constant floods of emails. Or let's say you do get off of work. Work is so stressful, you might even just talk about the job all the time when you're off because it's so stressful. So that's the indicator that, yes, your career, your workload, that may actually be a huge distraction. And it's so very common. We're going to get to tips of how to maneuver, like how do you get through some of these common issues? Thank you for the person that said good sex equals good sleep. Factual. So let's talk about this some more. Someone else mentioned kids. Kids, they need our non-stop attention. They're hungry. They're missing their toy. They need help with homework. Somebody not treating them well. Are we keeping up with their academics, how they're being treated at school? We've got to take them to different extracurricular activities. They got practice. Y'all, it's nonstop with kids. So when someone said in the chat box, kids, absolutely. And then I want you to consider some other family dynamics too that hasn't been mentioned just yet. We might not only have kids, but we might have some extras. Like we might have a blended family situation where we're trying to navigate those complex situations, where you're trying to coordinate with mothers outside of the home, fathers outside of the home, different rules, and maybe there's even issues amongst communication, amongst rules, do the kids, y'all know how it is, so much, right? And maybe that's not you. Maybe you're not in a blended family, but maybe you have a parent who is aging. and having illnesses, and you're trying to navigate that and take care of them, and maybe they give us a pushback. Like, there's so much that can go on in our minds that can be such a distraction. Yes, they are important. Our kids, our career, our family are important. And so is our relationship and our intimacy. Okay, I'm going to read the comment that's in the chat box. Someone said, I think in response to good sex equals good sleep. Yep, we touch each other all the time throughout the day. So get ready for the sex at night. Absolutely, absolutely. One of the biggest mistakes that couples can make is starting foreplay right before sex, if they even do foreplay at all. It should be throughout the day, and we're going to talk about that. Some ways to rev up that foreplay throughout the day, and it kind of put a different spin on it. So I'd love to see your thoughts on that too. Another piece that I hear about so much in my practice with couples is a fixation on a clean house. Like, everything needs to be perfect. We have to get things in order. There's dishes, there's bathroom, there's the room, there's the laundry, there's the yard. Like, it is endless. And so if you have one spouse who feels like they're doing it all, they're going to be tired and maybe resentful. That's for another day though. So what do you do about this? From career, I want to hear from you all in the chat. What do you do about some of these issues? What are some of your suggestions? I have some outlined to share with you tonight. But in terms of career taking over, in terms of the kids, always needing that attention, in terms of even family and keeping the house together, all of the different levers that need to be pulled to make a family function. What do you do? What do you do? Someone is giving some really good keys here. Share the load. Share the load. Have a routine in place. Absolutely. Share the load. And sometimes in sharing the load, it means, are we going to be willing to let go of some gender roles, some traditional stances about certain things if we see that our partner is overwhelmed? I don't know how y'all feel about it, but what are you willing to do if you have a partner who's overwhelmed, overburdened, those kinds of things? And a routine, have a routine in place. This might take practice, right? Some of us are more free-spirited, free-flowing. Routines might be challenging, but what we need, right? Thank you for this comment. Throw caution to the wind. Just have some spontaneous fun. Throw the caution to the wind. I love it. I love it. Life is, as we're talking, life is full of responsibilities from every direction. We need to give ourselves permission to have these times, these pockets of times where we're just being spontaneous and we're having fun. Sometimes we have to be intentional about that because there's so much energy going towards all these responsibilities. Okay, someone said a good bedtime. That is the truth for kids. And actually, that was one of the factors that I had on here too. In terms of kids, if we don't create the structure for them, they could be up all night needing something from us, being unpredictable of when they would walk through or try to walk through the bedroom door. Locks work, I'm just saying. But yes, having that consistent routine of a bedtime. So sometimes we have to become more disciplined to help our kids get in bed at a certain time and help them become more disciplined and know that, okay, 8:30, someone said, for example, 8:30, that's my kid's bedtime too. That's the time for you to be in bed, and the remainder of the time is the time for the adults, right? I would also say ask for help. If you are that spouse that feels burdened by all of the chores and the tasks and the keeping up with everything, sometimes, we can have pressure to feel like we're getting it all done and we handle it things with ease and we don't need a lot. But sometimes it's just time to ask for help. And sometimes we need to be able to say no to certain requests. So make sure you are doing that with your spouse. Make sure you're letting them know what you need so you don't feel burdened by having to do so many chores or run the kids to so many places, for example. And in terms of the clean house, we like a clean house, right? But you also have to know the difference between when you're being reasonable or perfectionistic, when you're trying to do everything perfectly and it's stressing you out and getting in the way of intimacy time. We got to be honest with ourselves about that. So let go of perfection. Be more spontaneous. Y'all are firing up in this chat box. Get spontaneous and be intentional, right? Also, some other tips on here. You definitely want to set more boundaries with the kids. They need to know that a certain time is adult time, right? Also, they need to take on some responsibility. It shouldn't just be the adults. They can do something. They can do something. And more likely, they can do a lot more maybe than what they're doing. And it teaches them responsibility. It teaches them that we as a family, we contribute, we help one another. We don't put it all on mommy. We don't put it all on daddy. So set boundaries with these kids, right? Let them cry. Tears are okay, but they need to also learn it's important to make sure you have those boundaries and that routine in place. All right, how are we doing in here? I see some amen. Okay, I agree. Yeah, we have to put things in order. Whatever we want in our life, we have to make some sacrifices. We have to say no. We have to make room for it, even if it's uncomfortable at first. All right. So another tip I would give for you, for the person who is just tired, and that's what's getting in the way mostly between you and your sex life going to the next level with your spouse, I want you to start paying attention to how often you get burnt out. How often do you get to that place where you are completely drained? We're pretty predictable. So we tend to, run like clockwork. So for example, I know for me on a quarterly basis, I need to take a few days off. You need to figure out for you, how often do you need to take time off? And how often you get burnt out can really help you understand what time frame you need to do that. I'm going to also ask, what are you doing for you to get more energy? Like, it's not going to fall out the sky, it's not going to come in the clouds. You're going to have to do something to get more energy, whether that's working out more consistently, which can also help with the sexual intimacy, right? Whether there's supplements to help with that, and absolutely more rest. Okay. So let's get into the spicy segment. So we've got a breakdown of the distractions and what you need to do about it. Are y'all willing to make the change? Are y'all willing to make the change so we can take this relationship to the next level? All right. So one of the things as we're going to talk about tonight is flirting. I love it. Yes, let's do some yes in the comments in the chat box. We're going to talk about flirting. Now, if you've been in a relationship for a long time, there's some things that can come with that unintentionally. It can get a little boring if you let it. It can get a little predictable. We could just get comfortable. Can I just be honest, everybody? So we want to make sure we're intentional about our intimacy, and even before that, how we flirt and create that spark and sizzle throughout the day. So in order to do this, you're going to need some courage to get out of your comfort zone with some things. You're going to need to really flow with confidence. And this is something you can be really intentional about doing. I want you to consider flirting in a different kind of way. I want you to consider flirting using all of your senses, all 5 of your senses. Now, you have your idea of flirting, but this week I'm challenging you for every day this week to flirt using all of your senses. And we're going to break it down. But I want you, for the folks in the chat box, what are some ideas you think of how you can flirt using your different senses? How can you flirt using your different senses? I'm going to give you some great ideas. And for those of you viewing from social media, if you're not in this chat box, if you're not in the Zoom, that means you have not registered. You want to make sure you register so that you can engage with us, so that you can get your questions answered live, as well as get the recordings of each day of the challenge. So you can do so at spicymarriagechallenge.com for free 99. That's spicymarriagechallenge.com. Okay, so let's break down flirting using your senses. Now, remember, the senses are sight, sound, touch, smell, and taste. We talked about distractions at the first half, but the truth is that we need to do some flirting to grab some attention. We need to become the distraction. We need to set the tone and the mood for not just intimacy, but the whole relationship. So sound. I want you to think about what do you say to your sweetheart? What do you say to your sweetheart, and how do you say it? Do you give seductive messages? Do you have a seductive tone that you speak to your sweetheart? Do you give them compliments and talk about how attractive they are? Do you show your appreciation? Do you tell them how much you appreciate them, how much you love them? We've got to really create a sound that is seductive and engaging to really set the tone. Let's see, another piece, which is a little for later, right? In terms of the spirit of fun, engaging, even in intimacy, some of us need to, give ourselves permission to be more free during intimacy. There should be sound during intimacy when you're enjoying the pleasure that your partner's giving you. But sometimes we can be a little restricted. And so you want to make sure that not only in foreplay, not only in flirting, but also during intimacy, you're able to exchange that sound to really spice up things for your partner. I see some comments in the chat. Grabbing husband's butt, hugging, smelling, touching. I love this. Googly eyes across the room, saying I love you, saying that he's fine. Absolutely. And just thanking him for everything he does. Absolutely. Sometimes this can seem simple, right? Flirting can seem simple, but affection isn't always comfortable for everyone, especially if you grew up in an environment where there wasn't a lot of hugs and I love yous and compliments. It can feel out of your comfort zone. So remember, we talked about courage. For those that it is not in your comfort zone, have that courage to try something different. Be confident in what you're doing and what you're saying, because it's the love of your life. It is okay. It's okay to experiment and to be outward with how you feel about each other. Okay, so we're going to go to touch. We're going to use these hands, right? We're going to use these hands. Think about the different ways that you can flirt using touch. Having a massage, even if it's just a few minutes on the shoulder, right? Massaging each other, really going in and finding those tense areas. Being intentional about touching your partner is really important. I want you to think, was the last time you played footsie? When was the last time you guided your foot up your partner's leg slowly and seductively? When was the last time? What about the last time you had a long hug where you allowed each other to explore using your hands? Just taking your time, being intentional about the feeling between the two of you. You want to make sure that you're incorporating touch throughout the day. And kiss, of course. Maybe you all kiss each other every day. How can you take it up a notch? How can you make that kiss more seductive? I want you to be intentional with your touches and what you say to each other. And I'm loving the chat box in terms of these different things you all are doing. Be intentional of how can you take it up to the next level. Okay, now let's talk about visual. This is an important one because we have come, is it safe to say we've come out or through a pandemic? But during the pandemic, wearing pajamas and sweats was all we knew. It was life. And so we got very comfortable in comfort, which is great, except not for the flirting, not so much. I want you to consider visually, what are you offering your sweetheart through the day? Visually. Be honest. Is it clean, what you're wearing? Are there holes? You know, we got to go here, right? Because sometimes we really love on our clothes and we get comfortable in our clothes. Is it time for an upgrade? Do you know what's attractive to your sweetheart at this phase of life? You knew maybe at the beginning when you were dating or at the beginning of the marriage. Do you know what's attractive to them now? Having these conversations is important, but getting outside of your comfort zone is important too. You don't have to do it all the time, but you want to be intentional about that at least some of the time. Now, let's talk lingerie. Let's talk undergarments when it's time for the do. What condition is it in? Sometimes we get a little slack, right? Sometimes we're just wearing bloomers or we're just wearing old boxer briefs. Let's really, really be intentional about the visual, okay? Not only can we take a look at how we show up visually with what we wear, but let's say you're not with your spouse throughout the day. Maybe you both don't work from home, so you only see each other at the top of the day and in the evening. So throughout the day, text those spicy pictures to each other. Text those spicy messages. Let them see something really sweet, something really sexy. Slip that note with his or her lunch. Really be on each other's minds. This takes attention because we have so many things pulling at us from different directions, right? Okay, so we're now down to smell and to taste. And I'm just going to go here because we need to hear it. Smell. We want to be really intentional about hygiene. Having our feminine wash, having our shower, having our cologne, our perfume, having our candles, having our incense, scented oil, really provoke each other through scent. That's something that we can kind of get off of doing, right? Be intentional about that. Do you know his favorite scent of yours? Do you know her favorite scent of yours? Let's get rid of guessing and start asking. We are all too grown for guessing. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about sex much more than before. Last but not least, taste. Taste. What can you do to make things spicy with taste? Have you considered, when's the last time you fed your sweetheart? When was the last time you dipped some fruit in chocolate and just seductively fed them? We can be playful. How about, they have plenty things on the market, including flavored lubricant, including flavored underwear. You all can take it as far as you please, right? But using taste, that can be something to spice up flirting as well. Okay, so that's our segment for tonight. The challenge that I have for you is implementation. So get busy. Use your senses to take flirting to the next level. Do not stay in your comfort level, but take it and run with it. I want to make sure if you haven't registered that you do so at spicymarriagechallenge.com. Join us tomorrow night at 9 p.m. on Love Day. We're going to give you 20 minutes of spice. We're going to talk about how to get out of your head and how to get into some spicy games that you can do at home. So I will see you all then. If there's any questions that you all have from the folks in the chat, please put that in the chat box before we close out. I'm going to again go over what day 3 and day 4 is going to go talk about. So tomorrow is day 3. Again, if you have questions, put it in the chat. But tomorrow is day 3. We're going to talk about changes in the body, how to get out of your head, and what are some spicy games that you can do now. We're going to do that on tomorrow. On day 4, we're going to have a spicy exploration activity. You do not want to miss that. You don't have to have your spouse present, but it'll be funner if they are. So I don't see any questions in the chat box. I'm going to see you all on tomorrow night. You all enjoy your spouses, and I'll see you then.